Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Bestech SYN, which I was convinced that I would find a familiar designer's name behind, but every website I've checked said that this was an internal design by Bestech. I don't know what this is reminiscent of. I mean, it's reminiscent of a whole bunch of things, right? I mean, ask a million people, get a million answers. But yeah, the interesting element, of course, being all of the lumps on the back of the blade. But it is actually a pretty interesting or a pretty good general design for EDC, and we'll go over why I think that. Thanks so much to Bestech for sending this in. Actually, I think it was actually sent by a retailer, but Bestech, I think, had a hand in it. So anyways, I will link this knife right down below so you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please, make sure to follow me on Instagram. Did you know it was double-sided? I bet you didn't. Maybe you did. Well, now you know. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex is the takeaway from that. Let's go ahead and measure it. What's the overall length of the Bestech SYN? Did I say the name? I honestly can't even remember. Well, it's in the title, right? Overall length is 8 inches. Blade length is 3.5. Cutting edge is just a hair over 3 1/4. It's like 3.3. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2? How about, let's do the Pyrite XL, or I'm sorry, I keep calling it the XL, the large Pyrite and the regular Pyrite. There we go. How about the, we'll just do a couple more. You know what, we'll mix it. We'll do the Spyderco Para 3 and we'll do the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, because it is most similar to the Ritter Hogue. There we go. So how's the action? The action's actually pretty nice. This will inevitably smooth up over time. It's not quite perfectly drop shut yet, but I think it's always better if there's a little bit of a break-in period, because then you get less wobble. If it's perfectly drop shut out of the box, then by the time it loosens up a little bit, sometimes you get a little more wiggle wobble. You don't want that, right? Deploying it with the thumb, as long as you get the right angle, you can do it. It's more this way than up, right? Reverse flicking it is basically a perfect experience. I have no issue there. And the detent is tuned very nicely. In fact, I'm going to call this, it's kind of a medium to medium heavy detent. It's a little more pull. You can hear it. I like that click there. It's a little bit heavier than we sometimes see, where the primary means of deployment is the hull. This guy uses a bunch of extra syllables to make himself sound smart. I do. How did you fit? You're seeing through the curtains. How dare you? Yeah, but it's got a little bit heavier detent there. And because I've knocked the edges down on the holes, or on the hole on either side, it's a pleasant experience. Let's go ahead and take a look at the lock bar here. This is cut on the front side slightly lower than on the lock side, which is great. It's also been scalloped. That means you have easy access to it. It's very easy to disengage. Very nice. Very good experience. Let's go ahead and do, oh, it runs on bearings, by the way. I imagine that's fairly obvious. Let's go ahead and do a measurement here, or I'm sorry, do a check of thickness in the handle. You can see here that it is slightly thicker than the Spyderco Para 3, but it is contoured, which is fine. Adds a little bit more girth in the hand. It's just, I gotta find a better way of saying that, right? All right, maybe you guys like it. You guys like it. You like it when I say stuff like that. Shut up. Don't tell me. We weren't saying anything. Yes, you were. And see, the funny part of it, you have to imagine that nobody's going to see this for a couple of weeks, right? So in this moment while I'm recording it, I'm making jokes for absolutely nobody. I'm sitting here by myself, laughing at my own jokes or creating imaginary arguments with an audience that isn't there. So, welcome to the Metal Complex YouTube channel. Anyways, let's go ahead and what's the next thing that we do? We measure that. Okay, let's go ahead and weigh it. So materials, we are looking at titanium, which this is a faux bolster situation. You can see it's actually part of the frame. micarta, titanium backspacer, titanium clip, and then we have LMAX steel, which they are hardening at 60 to 61, which I think is pretty good. I'm pretty sure that's right there where LMAX is supposed to be, because unless I'm mistaken, LMAX has a similar optimal range to M390. It's possible that LMAX is a point higher, like it's actually supposed to be 61 to 63 or something like that, in which case they would have this slightly too low. But I believe LMAX, which is also made by Bowler, has a similar range to M390. It's optimal range, right? So weight on this guy, we are looking at a little over 4 ounces. Honestly, that's about half an ounce lighter than I thought it was going to be. Not bad. Not perfect ratios there with the blade length, but not bad at all. Let's go ahead and, before I forget about it, let's measure the blade stock thickness. I'd bet that's 135. Oh my gosh, I am a genius. 135 thousandths. I'm better at that. It only took 3,600 uploads. Let's go ahead and measure, not measure, but let's check the hardware here. Do a hardware check. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel, or the pinned comment, actually. This is going to be a T8. So we have a T8 pivot. We have a T8 lock bar insert screw. We have T8 for the scale screw. There are likely more screws underneath here holding in the backspacer, and sometimes those are T6, but you can rest assured there's at least one more under here. I think this one goes through it. T8 pocket clip screws. It would be a shame for them to just randomly switch and be like, nah, you know what? T6, idiot. Like as soon as you get the scale off there, haha, T6, change the bit, right? I would hope that they wouldn't do that, but maybe they did. In any case, it's not really that big of a deal because you just switch, right? Not what I'd call minimal hardware, but then again, not what I'd call a complex construction. So as long as you have the right tools to take the thing apart, you should be good to go. I think we did everything there. Let's go ahead and talk about the meat and potatoes here. So, nothing really overly unique about any of this. Like if I did this and just put my thumb over this and I was like, look at this new design, you'd be like, wow, we've seen that a million times. Classic handle profile, Warncliffe blade, hole in the blade. Wow, amazing. Oh, that is kind of weird, right? I mean, that's kind of what's going on here. We got lots of thumb lumps. And truthfully, it does work. The initial position here, that's complementing, because your thumb position is going to more or less complement the index finger position. So choked up, it would have been really cool if they had just put a choil in it. They gave you a flat area. I would have felt slightly less likely to run my finger up on that blade if this was more of a choil area. They put 1, 2, 3, 4 rounded areas that are clearly meant for fingers. And the one area that it really seems like it would have been the most beneficial, they're like, you know what? Make that flat. Yeah, make that one flat. That'll be great. It's not bad. I just like, it's like, oh, there's the sharpening tool. Oh, I'm going to the hospital, right? It's not bad. I'm kind of making a bigger deal out of it than I need to. But, yeah, the initial position complements the index finger well. This area here, I mean, this would be like, for fine detail, if you're carving the wizard's staff, you're doing something like that, and it's okay. This area up here is kind of cozy. I kind of like this. It's like an elongated draw cut, and they've made a little place for your index finger. I don't know what the final notch is for, right? It's kind of like the equivalent of drinking tea with your pinky out. Like if you're that precision, if you're a professional draw cutter, right? But you're kind of a fancy boy too, then maybe you'd just use the tip of the finger to do that. I have no idea. I think for the most part, I mean, it adds a little bit of circumstantial utility, which is a very broad term that can be applied to a lot of things. But it mainly just makes the blade look a little bit different than what we normally see. The closest thing to this that I can think of is, honestly, it's like the Umnumzon, because it has multiple, areas. It just comes out to more of a harpoon, well, absolutely a harpoon tip. The rest of the blade is a hollow ground. It's like a hollow ground straight razor, right? And it'll work. It's pretty darn thin behind the edge, and at the geometry and the hardness that they have LMAX, assuming I'm correct about LMAX, sometimes I'm not, right? then yeah, I mean, it should be a pretty good performer, honestly. It's very comfortable, and thanks to a milled clip that doesn't have any sharp spots, that it's flat. It doesn't have like a big freaking ski jump at the end of it or anything like that. Yeah, it's pretty comfortable, honestly, back here or choked up, right? It just doesn't take a form that is really a whole lot different, like especially the handle and just blade, right? This and this. It's just like we've got a bajillion of these, right? We have a tumbled finish up here on the flat, which extends out to about 95% the length of the blade. And then this is a belt satin finish down here. The edges of the blade are all nicely knocked down. We got a little bit of jimping here. I think it would have been nice to just, it would have been kind of neat if they just jimped it all the way out, right? Just go ahead and give us that extra traction, right? I mean, it's already kind of weird and goofy. Why not? Go ahead. Simple backspacer. We have a little bit of a lanyard hole there. So yay. Still got to try to find more ways to include lefties. They are 10% of the population. We have a clip mounting position that is only accommodating for right-handed people, which seems to be par for the course in the knife world. Let's make it easier for lefties. Wrap it around, tuck it into that, the top of this here, mill a little slot out of the micarta or into the titanium, right? There's ways to do that. And you can, even to not do screw holes and still have meaningful threads, you could actually put the screws on the inside of the scale, and then you wouldn't, you could, it would be a little bit extra, but you could just go a pocket into the micarta on either side and not necessarily all the way through, so you wouldn't see them. And anybody saying that that's ridiculous, no, I've seen it before. I've seen that countless times. So companies definitely do that. There's a way to do it. It might add a little bit to the cost, but not so much that it's not worth doing, in my opinion. The clip could be slightly shorter, but it seems like a silly thing to complain about. The clip itself works really well. We've got about a medium carry depth, which is fine. In and out of the pocket is fine. I do like that most of the frame lock is underneath the scale, because that way you don't have to figure out where to put your hands while you're deploying it, right? You just deploy it. You're not going to be putting any unnecessary pressure on that lock bar and making it harder to open up. We got a stop pin located in its traditional place. A little bit of shouldering there on the blade tang, or what we would refer to as a blade tang on the folding knife. No blade play up, down, left, or right. Bestech is pretty good about this. No lock stick, no pivot lash, and consistent action in here. This will get better over time. Really nice detent. And as far as I can tell, perfect centering. Honestly, it's pretty cool. I mean, the only reason I'm going to remember this thing is because I'll be like, oh yeah, that's the Wharncliffe thing with all of the extra humps, right? And it works. It's a great tool. The only issue I have, really, is the price. They want $279. Why? Guys, why? Bestech. What on earth makes this a $280 knife? There are companies competing directly with you who are making exactly the same thing for $100 less. This is a Chinese production knife, and while it is executed very well, it's just not in the right price zone, not by a long shot. I mean, okay, you want to charge up a little bit because it's Bestech. Bestech's not a new company. They're well known. They are consistent in quality, right? And that's going to be the case. We should expect to see like a little bit of an increase in price once you've established yourself and have made good with the community, and I believe that Bestech has, right? So should we expect to see a little bit higher prices? Okay, yeah, a little bit. Maybe you come in at 210, 220. 280? Come on. This is a cool knife. If you can choke that price down, you'll like this knife. But outside of that, the price is too high. I find myself saying that a lot lately, right? A lot of people are like, oh, Metal Complex, you should adjust for inflation. Not while we have companies competing directly with these companies and bringing stuff to the table in the exact same ballpark for $100 less. $100 less. It's not like this is made in Taiwan, or it's made in, Italy, or it's made wherever, somewhere where the labor costs would be higher. There is absolutely no reason that this knife should be $280. WE knives is kind of in the same, it's the same issue, right? Now, you can, I'm not saying Bestech can't make a knife and charge $280 for it. You can if you bring something extra to the table. You go above that $250 zone, especially when you're approaching $300, and you had better bring something extra. Micarta is an extra. Titanium is an extra. Elmax is not a new steel. That's not extra, right? Got to be something else here. It's a cool knife. It will work. Functional. I think they've got Elmax heat treated in a good spot. Price is way too high. So that's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Thank you again to Bestech, and I think it was White Mountain Knives who sent me that. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.